He relaxed his grip on the sling, lowered the Lee Enfield .303 rifle from his shoulder, closed his eyes briefly and again took stock of his surroundings. To his front, the ground sloped away gently, the uncultivated field an unattractive patchwork of tussocks and wind-blown shrubs and bushes. Behind him lay a wood, in fact little more than a large copse, that echoed with the raucous cries of rooks. It was late afternoon, grey and cold, and his view down the field was blurred by the curtains of steadily falling rain. Dawson was chilled to the bone, soaking wet, really uncomfortable and thoroughly pissed off. He was lying in a shallow ditch that ran in a more or less straight line across the top of the field. His feet and heavy boots were actually submerged in the few inches of brown, stagnant water. The all-pervasive farmyard smell clearly indicated the reason for its colour at the bottom of the trench. Even outside the ditch, the ground was sopping wet, caused by the driving rain that had been lashing the area since first thing the previous morning. And despite the allegedly waterproof ground sheet Dawson was lying on, and the gas cape, a garment of dubious utility made of a thin rubberized material printed with a camouflage pattern and normally intended to be worn like a poncho draped around his shoulders, his army battle dress had managed to absorb the water with considerable efficiency, and he was soaked right through to his army underwear. After almost 4 hours in more or less the same position, he was now lying in what amounted to a cold, sopping wet, heavy and all-enveloping cocoon of brown serge. The only thing he possessed that wasn't wet was the breech of his Lee Enfield, which was fitted with a canvas cover against the pounding rain. "Shut up, Dawson, keep your eyes front." The order came from the man lying directly to his right, who was in every way in precisely the same physical state as Dawson, but who sported corporal's stripes on his arm. Baker was the NCO, non-commissioned officer in charge of the 6-man section. Dawson was the second in command, the 2LC, a lance-corporal. "This is a complete waste of bloody time, Corp, and you know that as well as I do. Shut up and do what you're told." Corporal Baker's irritation was tempered by the fact that Dawson's opinion fairly closely matched his own, but there was nothing he could do about it. The orders he'd been given were simple and explicit. The 6 members of this section were to guard the field, the obvious approach from the wood, against a possible enemy advance, and the shallow ditch was the best cover they'd been able to find when they arrived there just after midday. The only good thing was that they hadn't actually needed to dig themselves in. The ditch was already deep enough to conceal them. "You said that 3 hours ago," Dawson said, "and I've seen bugger all so far. Even the sodding rabbits have gone home." Dawson's ill temper wasn't surprising. Watching waiting for something to happen is incredibly boring. In this case, compounded by the conditions and the fact that all they'd had to eat since breakfast were the dry compo rations from that morning, they hadn't even been able to light a stove to have a brew up, as it might compromise their position. A supply of hot tea is as essential for morale as bullets are for rifles. So, while it was Eddie Dawson who complained, all 6 men felt pretty much the same. "We've got our orders," Baker snapped. Dawson looked at him. "And they made sense to you, did they? I wouldn't put it past that bastard Mackenzie to send us out here when he knows the action's somewhere else. He's had it in for me ever since he's got here." "He's had it in for you, Dawson, because you're an insubordinate bastard. Now shut up and keep watching." At that moment, the soldier lying on Baker's right-hand side spoke, his voice low and urgent. "Bottom of the field. 200 yards, 10 o'clock by the edge. I saw movement down there." Immediately, every one of the 6 men snapped to high alert as they stared down the slope through the grey curtains of falling rain. "I don't see anything," Baker murmured. "Are you sure?" "Yes. Look, there it is again." And this time they all saw it. A shadowy figure, a rifle clutched in his hands, crept around the edge of the hedge close to the bottom of the grassy hillside, perhaps 200 yards away. The man crouched down in the undergrowth and appeared to scan the field in front of him. Other soldiers, perhaps a half a dozen in all, materialized from the gloom behind him and fanned out across the field, forming a line.